really say thank you very much for welcoming me here, and it's really good to be able to share the work that Orchard do. And as Marilyn said, we're not the only school in Bristol that does it. Lots of schools across the city are involved in restorative at different levels. What's really encouraging as well is that the primary schools have had training, and they're also involved as well. And I'm very lucky with a colleague that I work quite closely with. We're doing some additional work now. We've even moved on to the City of Bristol College, so that's really exciting. That's quite new, and in the future it'd be good to be able to share a little bit more about that. But today it's really about Orchard and how our journey's gone from about 2007, 2008. So I'll show you some slides and we'll talk a little bit more about it, and I can answer any questions that you might have at the end. So really, what it was really about was back then we had a new head teacher and we had a lot of exclusions, a lot of detentions, and as we would not proudly say, but we used to have a whole hall full of students in a detention. The new head, Helen Holman, came in at that point and really felt that there must be something else, and that really it wasn't the answer. Excluding students, detentions was not really what we wanted to be about. At that particular time I was a head of year and I was part of that process, but you'd often find that a student would be in detention not really knowing what for, and sitting down doing a menial task of work not related to the classroom that they may well have had the conflict with, and really had served no purpose. So it was really good that the journey started back then to make a change for the students that we actually worked with. I think this is the most, as you can see from there, really, the data says it all. It's a phenomenal change. I wouldn't say it's all of it. It's not the only thing that changed the actual culture in the school, but it certainly has gone a long way, as you'll see in the red headline, where we made the change, and it's gradually decreased there. I wouldn't say we don't exclude, because we do, if we have to. But it's usually at the very, very end of a process that we will have tried to support the young person, because we very much feel that an exclusion is not the answer for that young person. And as I think lots of you here would know, that really it goes on to have a life-changing impact on them if they are excluded from school. We mainly look at what else we can do, and we have the restorative discussions in place. And we really use it as part of a process. We're what we call ourselves as a community school, so we work with parents and families. In fact, we've also done some restorative training with the families that are in our school as well. So this is where it really started. Back then we were quite lucky. The head had heard something about restorative. I was not involved in the process even back then, right at the beginning, but it sounded something, as soon as it started to be talked about, that it was really interesting and that it would make quite a significant change for the young people that were at our school at that time. So that's where it really started. There was a bit of talk through some educational psychologists, and then we found out about the RAISE programme, and that was where we became involved. It was a free, which is always a good starting point when you have schools with tight budgets. It was something, a pilot that was going to then be rolled out, which has in fact been rolled out. And this is now what we do at school. As you can see, there's quite a lot of different bits of the training. I think the most important bit I value is the student training. We look very much that back then we were all trained, all the staff were trained to level 1 and level 2 approaches. Less so in the level 2. We had a core group of staff, that we still have a core group of staff that are trained to do what they would call the conferencing. Level 1 is all at the classroom level, and that's where we would be that all the teachers are able to have a conversation with a young person to try and ask them those key questions, the script questions, to really want to sort it out with them. So that's where some of it, what we do training with the students. Each house now there are 4 houses at Orchard, and in those houses there are roughly about 180 students, and then there are 8 tutor groups. So in each tutor group we hope to have roughly about two students in each tutor group that have had some training so that they can support predominantly the younger students, but we've moved more and more now because we find that we have very confident year 7s when they first come up to school, that they've had a lot of practice in mediation, being peer buddies in the playground, and so we're looking more and more now that we used to do year 11 when they were mature, but we didn't get, they were more or less moving on. So now what we look at is we do awareness workshops in year 7, and then we're predominantly now starting to train year 8 students so that they can then have the skills to go on and work with, link with year 7s, link with the year 6s while they're at primary school. So we're trying to sort of do an overlap so that students are supported all the way through from their peers. What else do we do? As I'd already said, the parent training, the awareness at the college, and really the next slide shows something that's really quite, I think is quite exciting. We linked with Kinyara, which is a school in Uganda, and they were very keen. We have staff come over, and we go over there, and about, I think it was not last year, the year before, for the first time students went over, and this year in Uganda students are coming from Uganda to us, but they wanted to find out when we talked about restorative, what that meant. And so you'll see on the slides there, we've got Will and Beth who went out and they did some sessions to show the students and their teachers what restorative was, how it was used in our school. So that was really quite interesting, and that continues to develop, that they want to find out a little bit more about it. That's the trained students. What we do now is that originally they used to wear t-shirts. Now we seem to be that they quite like the badges. We have badges for all different types of training in school that any student might have. So one of those now is that if they've done some restorative training, they'll wear a badge. But at that time, that was some training and they were able to wear t-shirts. So I think this is the main bit, I would say, is that we've stuck with it. And I'd say to anybody who might be thinking about restorative, and I know lots of you already do it in your organisations, but from a school's perspective, people say things come and go, but I think with restorative, it's been a case that we've wanted to stick with it. And you'll see on the bottom line there, I think we're at a stage where we're revisiting and we're making our stamp on it. Some people will say, oh, that students think it's an easy option, you just sit down and have a chat. If they think it's as easy as that, then that's good as far as I'm concerned, because they'll want to continue to do it. I think most of our work is about the preparation. It's preparing a young person to have the confidence to sit down with somebody. I think they'd far easier just rather go in and do a detention, because you don't actually have to face up to what's happened and that conflict you might have caused with the teacher or with a fellow student, or in fact somebody who they don't actually get along with and they haven't got along with for quite a long time. So I would say to you that they do want to sometimes avoid it. Careful preparation makes them realise that they can sit down with somebody else and have a conversation about it. This is the most newest bit that we're doing. But when I say new, it's not new in the fact is it's based on the circle time model, but very much that what we want to do in classrooms is that we want students to feel empowered, that if they're in a room and somebody is doing something that's not allowing them to get on with their work, then we feel very strongly that it's an area that needs to be developed. So we're talking about classroom restorative circles. It may well be that the teacher has an issue and that some of the students will be in agreement with her, but it's about challenging that whole class to come up with solutions to improve their learning environment. So that's quite new for us, and we have lots of different classes that I sometimes visit or other senior colleagues will visit, and we sit down using a circle time model and we will go round and discuss how people learn best and what's affecting their learning and how it's stopping them from achieving. And we also at that point we can talk about and we celebrate what's going well as well. And so it seems to be a really positive way to encourage young people to sit down and talk to each other. So that's me in a nutshell. I often talk quite quickly because I'm on a time-pressured assembly slot usually. There's lots more to it than that, but I think that I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I say to people all the time, come and see us if you're interested. As I said before, we're not the only secondary school in Bristol. There are lots of schools, and I think what's really encouraging is that we've got young people knowing about restorative. And if they know about it from nursery, primary, secondary school, then it can only be good for the city in the future, that we'll have lots of young people that will be confident that they've been involved in a process called restorative approaches.